I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of being a victim versus taking responsibility. And I think most people would say that they don't see themselves as a victim. Unfortunately, I think a lot of us do. It wasn't until recently that I realized that there is a lot of situations in life where I'm also playing the victim without realizing it. Because playing the victim is not necessarily only about kind of outrightly stating that you are a victim. It's also about shifting the responsibility for your life onto someone or something else. It wasn't until recently that I kind of realized that in order to not be a victim, you have to take responsibility for everything, every single thing. Now, regardless of what is happening out there in the world, there is an element of that we can take responsibility for and that we can start to improve on. It's not always obvious, but it's always there. Sometimes we are actively involved in the situation and we need to change our actions. Sometimes we may just need to remove ourselves from the situation. But I promise you there is always a reason. There's always something we are responsible for in the situation. In my case, a lot of the time, it's literally just how I'm choosing to frame or think about the idea or the concept. And it's been life-changing for me having this realization, because you feel a lot more empowered in your life when you think there's something you can do about it. When you convince yourself that you are trapped in a situation and there's nothing you can do about it, that is a little bit disheartening. And for me, that tends to drive some level of depression. This idea of what's the point? There's nothing I can do to make this better. Why should I even bother trying? And I think that's been a big challenge for me in my life. So getting to the point where I was able to realize that just thinking that way is actually labeling myself as a victim. So what I try to do these days is reframe every thought, every victim-related thought, into how can I take responsibility for this situation? What can I do in order to improve this situation or to reduce its effect on me negatively? Sometimes a lot of the negative influence in our life is completely mental from outside. There's neutral things taking place out in the real world, and we frame it in a negative way. And that's what causes us frustration and ultimately suffering in this life. You could think about something like missing your bus and then wanting to blame the world and nothing ever goes right for me. The bus is never here when I need it, and I'm going to be late for work. But in reality, the bus coming and going had nothing to do with you. You're just creating a story to enhance your suffering. The truth is, if you take responsibility, you didn't get there on time. Even if the bus came early, if you were there a little bit earlier, you would have been able to catch the bus. And I definitely think it's a great way to change our outlook. This can be especially important when dealing with other people. We have relationships in our lives that cause suffering to us because of the way we choose to view them. We have these expectations of people, and when they don't do what we expect them to do, we suffer in a sense. When the reality is, are we doing all we can do to help them to achieve those expectations? And also, is it fair for us to expect the things we are expecting from the person? So we have two ways to manage that situation. A situation like that, we can either provide the relationship with the tools that is needed for them to meet our expectations, or the other one is to work internally to release those expectations. I think it's probably a combination of both is the best move in a relationship. We are responsible for our reality and how we choose to see that situation. The world is very complex and there's a lot of things going on out there. We have such a narrow view of what is actually happening in the world. We're unable of feeling the way that other people feel, or even understanding their life truly in depth. They've existed for many years with many experiences that we'll never have. Human beings, as well as most things in life, are extremely complicated. And I think when we can start to recognize that, it definitely can help us to shift away from this victim mentality and shift towards taking responsibility. Ultimately, we only have control over our own mind. We don't even necessarily always have control over our own body. So it's important that we work on our mind, on choosing what we want to think, what we want to believe. Take responsibility for all of our actions, for all of our thoughts. Only allow things to play in your head that you believe is taking you closer towards your goals in life, your objectives. And when you have thoughts and ideas that work against you, get rid of them. They're not helpful. You have to really protect your mind and what goes on in there. And you don't really have to do anything else in life. If everything feels too difficult, if everything feels too hard, the only thing you have to do is control what you're choosing to think. That's it. If you feel like you can't get up in the morning, if you feel like going to gym is too difficult, if you feel like you're unable to start that business, if you feel alone and depressed in this world because no one's giving you the time of day, if you feel like you're not able to control your diet, you don't have to deal with those initially. All you have to do is start to pay very careful attention to how you choose to think about these situations. Are you thinking about them in a positive or a negative way? Are you acting as a victim or are you taking responsibility? And if you can spend 1 week just changing how you used to think about these ideas and concepts, these challenges in your life, taking control over your thoughts, it's probably going to become easier to address the things you really want to address in your life.